Welcome to RMU Live. Today is Friday, February 21st. I'm Isabella Harris.
And I am Mendes Ivaska.
2 people are dead after 2 smaller planes collided on Wednesday morning at an Arizona airport. According to the Federal Aviation Administration, the quote, busy and uncontrolled airport, which hosts a lot of flight training, does not have an operating air traffic control tower, end quote. The Mariana Regional Airport said each aircraft had 2 passengers aboard. This incident follows a recent string of aviation accidents, first with the January 29th mid-air collision in Washington, D.C., which killed 67 people, when a military helicopter and an American Airlines regional jet collided. A study from Minnesota State University on air traffic-related incidents at non-towered airports said, quote, near misses or runway incursions can happen due to misinformation and miscommunications or other human errors. Additionally, smaller planes are statistically more likely to experience incidents, end quote. This investigation is still ongoing.
Quote, it's amazing that we're still here, end quote, a passenger declared after leaving a terrible plane crash that resulted in an upside-down Delta Airlines airplane in Toronto on Monday. 18 out of the 80 passengers on the plane were injured and were rushed to the hospital immediately after the crash. The plane had flipped upside down with the passengers hanging from the ceiling on the runway like bats. The fire chief has begun an investigation into what had occurred and has shut down 2 runways of the airport. This incident follows up right after an American Airlines plane collided midair with the U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter when approaching Washington, D.C.'s Reagan National Airport. This crash is still undergoing an investigation.
Data posted by the Safety Board reported 13 fatal aircraft accidents this year, including 10 in January and 4 in February as of Wednesday. According to CSB News, quote, 2005 to the fall of 2024, there have been 5,066 near mid-air collisions reported by any piloted aircraft, and a total of 1,129 of these near mid-air collisions during the 20-year period involved at least 1 commercial aircraft, averaging to around 56 per year, end quote. Flying on the U.S. commercial airlines is still considered one of the absolute safest forms of transportation, according to a 2024 Transportation Statistics report from the Bureau of Transportation Statistics.
Numerous plane crashes have been reported. Let's hear more from reporter Maribel Gonzalez.
2 people are dead after 2 small aircrafts collided mid-air over Marana, Arizona.
It's still being actively investigated.
Wednesday's crash is the latest in a string of aviation incidents, beginning with the January 29th collision of a passenger jet and Army helicopter in Arlington, Virginia, killing 67 people. Since then, 4 others have reignited attention to air safety. A medevac plane crash in Philadelphia that killed 7 people, a plane crash in Alaska killing 10, a private plane that ran off the runway in Scottsdale, killing the pilot, and a Delta Airlines jet crash in Toronto, the plane ending upside down and on fire.
Come on!
Miraculously, all 80 people on board survived. This as the Trump administration slashes the federal workforce, including firing several hundred Federal Aviation Administration employees. In a memo shared with CNN, the acting FAA administrator insisted passenger planes are safe, saying, quote, the agency has retained employees who perform safety-critical functions. But one fired FAA employee disagrees.
I do think the American public does need to be concerned about not only my firing, but also the firing of so many public safety, national security professionals at the FAA.
Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal wrote a letter to the Transportation Secretary asking the FAA firings to be reversed. Duffy said in a post on X, quote, 0 air traffic controllers and critical safety personnel were let go. I'm Maribel Gonzalez reporting.
These countless plane crashes are worrying the American people, especially with the firing of hundreds of thousands of federal employees. It is the hope of the American people that the runways and airways will still continue to be a safe method of transportation heading into the future.
All 10 bodies of the victims from the Alaska plane crash have been recovered and identified. The small commuter aircraft was carrying 9 passengers and 1 pilot when it was traveling from Unalakleet to Nome when it disappeared. The plane was found a day later, 34 miles southeast of Nome, according to the U.S. Coast Guard. Investigators are still working to determine what the ultimate cause and reasoning for the aircraft's crash.
A broad consensus has emerged that the flight attendants and the crew of the aircraft were heroes in the Delta airplane that flipped upside down at Toronto Pearson International Airport. Sarah Nelson, the international president of the Association of Flight Attendants /CWA, declared that, quote, they performed their work perfectly as aviation's first responders, end quote. The flight attendants had followed all of their extensive safety training and had proceeded to get everyone off the plane quickly and efficiently. With this extensive training, Deborah Flint, the CEO of the Greater Toronto Airports Authority, explains that the, quote, air travel remains the safest form of transportation, end quote. Despite the recent plane crashes, there is actually a record a low amount of U.S. airplane accidents for the month of January. Let's hear more from Mandy Gaither.
From a fatal collision to a recent crash landing, it may feel like air travel is becoming more dangerous, but January's preliminary data from the National Transportation Safety Board appears to show a record low number of airplane accidents nationwide. 62 in total, and most were on private flights. That's 18 fewer accidents than the previous January, which had 80 accidents. Still, the fear of flying is common in the U.S.
It affects approximately 25 million Americans.
Psychologist Shavonna Childs with Cleveland Clinic says managing those flying fears starts before you get on the plane. Distract yourself with things to do for the trip and focus on the fun you'll have or whatever you'll do when you get to your destination. Child says to also control what you can, pick the seat that makes you most comfortable, and choose an early and direct flight.
If you're the person that turbulence bothers you, because that could be part of your fear of traveling, travel early in the morning when the ground is cooler, because when we have the cooler ground, the air is cooler and there's less turbulence.
If you're feeling anxious on the plane, try deep breathing, meditation, and distraction with books, music, movies, or conversations with others.
There's also having positive self-talk, having some reality conversations. I'm okay. This is a plane ride. I'm almost there. I can make it.
And if your fears become overwhelming, Child says therapy and medication can also help. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Thank you, Mandy Gaither. A good movie or show always helps to distract me from the fear of flying. Federal budget cuts are having a major impact on local programs and services. See what this means when we come back on RMU Live.
Because I hadn't been able to see my grandchildren.
I can't wait to get back to field trips with my school.
Not having to think about putting on a mask.
I really can't wait to get back to life, really.
I miss all my friends. I miss taking pictures in school.
An expression on someone's face when you do something nice for them.
COVID-19 vaccines are available, and they're the first step to safely getting back to things we miss most. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision about COVID-19 vaccines.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 30 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people.
It's time to make an informed decision about COVID-19 vaccines. The dangerous new Delta variant is more than twice as contagious as the original virus and can affect anyone. Right now, 9 out of 10 hospitalizations and deaths from COVID are among unvaccinated people. Getting vaccinated might save your life, and there's now an option that's fully approved by the FDA. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org.
Honorary Forest Ranger Betty White here, lending a hand to my dear friend Smokey Bear, because for years he's only said,
only you can prevent wildfires.
But there's a lot more to say. Like, if you park your car on tall, dry grass, the hot exhaust pipe can start a wildfire. So keep the animals safe, especially the cute shirtless one. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
Welcome back to RMU Live. President Donald Trump's cabinet members have been busy since being confirmed. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has ordered the agency to develop plans to slash 8% of the Department of Defense's budget within the next 5 years. Hegseth ordered the proposed cuts to be drawn up by Monday, stating, quote, "The time for preparation is over. We must act urgently and revive the warrior ethos, rebuild our military, and reestablish differentiate," end quote.
President Trump's budget cuts have forced hundreds of thousands of employees to be laid off, including park rangers. Let's hear more from reporter Alex Sachs.
Brian Gibbs started his Friday excited for the fresh snow on the ground.
I was anxious to start preparing some snowshoe programs to guide the public the next week. And so I was feeling kind of inspired.
This was big for the Iowan who wore many park ranger hats at Effigy Mound's National Monument in Northeast Iowa and felt like a nice reset after a bumpy start to the year.
It's been a very traumatic past couple of weeks being a federal government employee.
But as the workday progressed, red flags started to pop up.
My shift was over. I was locked out of my email and my ability to access my personnel files.
All of his anxiety was affirmed when his supervisor shared the news. He was one of 2 people to be fired from the National Park Service at Effigy Mounds.
It felt merciless. I felt violated. Very disheartening.
The Trump administration says the cuts, among other layoffs, will help rein in federal spending. Well, after working at his dream job since 2017, the father, with another child on the way, packed up his office and headed for home.
Very challenging to lose a stable income and to lose my insurance and to try and, feel that I can comfortably and confidently take care of my family.
Born and raised in Boone, where Ledges was his backyard, Brian says Iowa is his home and her parks his passion.
They allow for us to refill our spiritual need, our physical needs, our mental needs, and they're the best. They're the best of humanity. They're the best of Americans.
And the national parks are home to a federal workforce he believes is worth protecting.
To not have access to memory making and dreaming about taking vacations to these just gorgeous places is a very frightening thought right now.
And that's why he's sharing his story, which has been shared on social media more than 200,000 times in less than a week.
Nothing's going to get better unless we care.
These budget cuts are having a tremendous impact on U.S. citizens. I wish Brian Gibbs well with his family and his new job search.
An appeals court declined to reinstate President Trump's executive birthright citizenship order. In denying the request, the panel found the Justice Department had not made a strong quote showing that they are likely to succeed on the merits of the appeal, end quote.
On Wednesday, President Donald Trump supported the congressional effort in order to put the District of Columbia back under federal control. He backed his conclusion, stating that the federal government would be able to help remove the crime and the homelessness in that district and make it safer. Despite these claims for federal takeover, Congress already vets all of D.C. laws, and they are able to overturn them if they so desire. However, President Donald Trump and some congressional Republicans wish to go further and remove the limited autonomy to put it back completely under federal control. He declared his desire to ensure that any foreign leaders hosted in Washington will not see the tents on the magnificent plaza and lawns in Washington, D.C.
It has been 2 months since President Trump has taken office, and since then he has signed 108 executive actions so far. Trump has vowed to the reshaping of the U.S. government, addressing it in his inaugural speech, quote, "the golden age of America," end quote. starting with immigration, trade, and national security.
On Wednesday, President Trump labeled Zelensky as a, quote, dictator without elections, end quote, and blamed him for strong-arming the U.S. into spending billions of dollars. Let's hear more.
Yeah, I mean, it is extraordinary over the past 2 days, really, just to speak to Ukrainians who are oftentimes struggling to catch up with the things they're hearing from the Trump administration. We've understood from various sources familiar with the proposal offer that indeed it wasn't just payback for future aid, it was essentially the Trump administration saying, well, you owe us for the stuff that the Biden administration gave you, give us access to your rare earth minerals. And that document's 16 pages long, 2 or 3 pages legalese, and then a dozen pages of specific places and assets that they had in mind. So quite specific. The notion that Zelensky was asleep, that President Donald Trump said there and didn't meet Bessent, well, that's not true. There was a joint press conference they gave, an extensive one. I'm sure at some point during the time Bessent was here, Zelensky went to sleep, and I'm sure Bessent did too. But it's an extraordinary comment to make, suggesting that essentially Zelensky himself has rejected that deal. He has said, yes, I wouldn't sign it. I have to guarantee Ukraine's interest. It wasn't a ready legal document. They haven't rejected it outright, but I'm sure they want to see better terms there. And they've said publicly they want to see security guarantees as part of that. Zelensky said to me yesterday, look, if you won't give us boots on the ground, you won't give us more military aid necessarily to fight, then give us air defenses to defend our skies. Ukraine hit constantly at the moment, and so there's growing concern here about the phrase dictator being used around Zelensky, about how he's refusing elections. Yes, Ukraine has not had elections during wartime. That isn't far from abnormal in European history when countries have indeed been attacked, and we've seen European leaders come to his aid, essentially the British suggesting that they didn't have elections throughout World War II because they were under bombardment, and we've heard European leaders too come forwards and say they do not believe that Ukraine is run by a dictator, and some suggesting that's in fact Vladimir Putin, the one man who Trump is very eager to not criticize, it seems, at the moment. So a startling turn in foreign policy for the United States here, a lot of bewildering rhetoric, the future of Ukraine's mineral resources on the table here. Essentially, I think their arm twisted if they want to keep the aid that will keep them fighting. But above all, you know, you heard at the start there, ordinary Ukrainians. People are dying as I'm talking to you now here, hundreds a day on the front lines. That is often missing from the discussion here, the sort of Twitter burns we're seeing between world leaders and statements at press conferences. And I think that is going to hove more clearly into view as we see Western support here, particularly from the Trump administration, falter.
Ukraine continues to delay signing the agreement for the U.S. to use their valuable resources. The future of this conflict is unclear.
Vice President J.D. Vance gave a speech to European leaders this past Thursday in Germany at the Munich Security Conference, and this is what Vance had to say.
Obviously, we're going to continue to have important alliances with Europe, but I really do think the strength of those alliances is going to depend on whether we take our societies in the right direction. The point that I try to make to our European friends, and I think that they're our friends, I believe that, I know President Trump does, is that friendship is based on shared values.
Like what you are watching? Check out the other RMU-TV shows happening next week. RMU Focus leads the way on Monday, followed by Sports Talk in the Berg on Wednesday and CSC on Thursday night. Can't wait to see you there.
Could we finally be easing into warmer weather? All when we return on RMU Live.
I don't remember how it started.
Talk to Dad.
Our back and forth. It always came back. Dad! You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
There's so many rewards in life. You coming into our home was one of the greatest rewards we could have ever had.
You know, it took 20 years, and I got my third child, who was 17 at the time.
It's so cool to watch the adult that you've become, and you really have done as much for us as you think we've done for you.
Most of my family, they never graduated high school or even let alone go to college, so I'm trying to break that barrier. Every day after work, went straight to school, studied hard, and it paid off. I could not have done it alone. I see the future is really bright for me. The high school diploma is just added to the confidence, and now I feel unstoppable.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
You told me not to talk to strangers. You told me not to cross the street without looking both ways.
You told me not to touch the stove. You told me not to do drugs. You told me not to drink and drive.
You gave me so many messages about how to stay safe. Why didn't you keep me safe by properly storing your gun?
Welcome back to RMU Live. Warmer weather is slowly coming to Pittsburgh. Let's go to Nate to check it out.
Thank you, guys. As I said before, what Mintos was saying, we got some warmer weather coming in. I'm Nate Kingston, by the way, and right now, if you take a look, we have a high of a 26 and a low of 16 today, so that's going to be pretty crazy. And then over to our humidity, we have 64% and a chance of precipitation at 16%. Let's move on over to our hourly. Going over to our hourly forecast at 3 p.m. We're looking at 26 degrees, and it's going to be slightly cloudy. Over at 6 p.m. we're looking at 25 degrees, and the clouds are still rolling in. And at 9 p.m. it's going to be night time, obviously, a low of 23 today. Moving on over to tomorrow. Tomorrow, what do we have coming in? Tomorrow, we have a high of 36. It is warming up just a little bit, and a low of 22. Humidity sitting at a 65%, and a chance of precipitation at only 14% tomorrow. Let's move on over to our 5-day forecast. Looking over at Sunday, we have a high of 40 and a low of 26, with the clouds rolling in over that sunshine. On Monday, we have a high of 48 and a low of 40. And going on over to Tuesday, we have a high of 48 and a low of 36 with some rain coming in. Hopefully that's not going to be snow with the warmer weather. And on Wednesday, we're looking at 44 degrees on the high and a 35 on the low with some clouds rolling in still. And on Thursday, to round out our 5-day, is 47 degrees on the high and a low of 29 degrees with some rain coming in. I can't wait for warmer weather to come in, and I'm really tired of the snow. Now sending it back over to the desk.
Thank you, Nate. With some rain coming up, it reminds me of how raindrops keep falling on my head, but that doesn't mean my eyes will soon be turning red. Crying's not for me, because I'm never going to stop the rain by complaining, because I'm free. Nothing's worrying me.
Winter sports are wrapping up their season slowly as spring creeps in. We're going to send it over to Taylor to hear more.
Thanks, guys. My name is Taylor Roberts, and I'm here for your Bobby Moe Sports Report. I'll be bringing you the latest on football, track and field, lacrosse, and basketball. Let's get right into it. The 2025 RMU football schedule was announced on Tuesday, and it features some historic firsts. The Colonials will take on West Virginia for the first time ever, making their first matchup against a Big 12 opponent. West Liberty is also a first-time opponent, while RMU renews rivalries with Dayton and Youngstown State. And for the first time since 2019, Duquesne will visit Joe Walton Stadium. On the track, history was made. Julia Dill set a new school record in the 500 meters with an impressive time of 16 minutes and 37 seconds. Her performance earned her Horizon League Indoor Women's Runner of the Week honors. Congratulations, Julia. On the lacrosse field, RMU's men's team picked up a big win on Tuesday, edging out St. Bonaventure 8-7. Goalkeeper Nate Fetcher was a brick wall, making 13 saves, while Burr had his 16th career multi-goal game and led all players with 7 shots on the goal. The Colonials dominated ground balls and face-offs, helping secure the win. Next up, they take on Canisius at home tomorrow at 4 p.m. The women's lacrosse team battled hard on Wednesday, but fell short in a 12-10 loss to Lafayette. Jenna Irwin had a stellar night, scoring 6 goals and hitting the 100 career goal milestone, making her just the 10th Colonial to ever achieve this. Gia Anthony added 2 goals while Vivian Lamonge and Samantha Brothers chipped in during a fourth quarter rally. They'll look back to bounce back tomorrow at 1 p.m. at home against George Washington. Looking ahead to this weekend, Army men's basketball is in action tonight at 7 p.m. at home against Green Bay and again on Sunday at 2 p.m. against Milwaukee. Be sure to pack the stands and show your Colonial pride. That's your Bobby Mills Sports Report, sending it back to Mintos and Isabella.
Thanks, Taylor. We'd like to wish good luck to all the Colonial teams in their upcoming games. RMU-TV is your #1 spot for campus news, sports, and weather. Make sure to tune in weekly to RMU Focus on Mondays at 3 p.m., Sports Talk in the Berg on Wednesdays at 5:15 p.m., as well as Colonial Sports Center on Thursdays at 9:30 p.m., and finally RMU Live on Fridays at 2 p.m.
Coming up next, we have news involving the recent death of the famous play-by-play announcer Mike Lang and more. Stay tuned here on RMU Live.
Every day,
Millions of people are connecting
and even though we're overcoming obstacles, watching each other's backs,
and banding together.
we should still make an effort
We should still make an
to
effort.
get to know each other.
on a deeper level.
Father,
Cosplayer,
Mentor.
actor.
it's time we take a step forward
It's time we take a step forward. Come together.
and discover
How accepting our differences
can make us stronger.
Yeah, Sam, Elmo.
Oh, hey, Julia. Are you ready to play band with us? I'm going to play my clarinet.
And Elmo's gonna play his drum. Drum loud.
Oh, well, you know what to do, Julia.
Julia knows.
With Julia's autism, loud sounds can be too much.
But she still loves to make music. Play band.
Early screening for autism can make a lifetime of difference. Find out more at screenforautism.org.
If you love them enough to crawl into a play place to get them to come down, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Can I get the now bar, please?
$1.
Have a good one.
Got it.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey.
Let me get a now bar.
Sure. $1.
Appreciate you.
You got it.
Welcome back to RMU Live. It's been another eventful week in Pittsburgh.
The legendary voice of the Pittsburgh Penguins, Mike Lang, passed away at the age of 76 on Wednesday. Lang was a Californian who quickly became a Pittsburgher and brought the Pittsburgh Penguins to life. His partner, Phil Bourque, declared that, quote, "We lost one of the kindest, most loyal and loving humans I've ever met," end quote. Lang had begun his career in 1974 as a Penguins broadcaster, leaving shortly thereafter, only to return again in 1976. He spent 30 years producing TV broadcasts before moving into the radio side and retiring from his 46-long career in 2021. He was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2001 by winning the Foster Hewitt Memorial Award.
A 17-year-old boy was shot in the abdomen in the downtown Pittsburgh Wednesday afternoon. An Allegheny County 911 dispatcher said police were sent to the 400th block of Smithfield Street just after 4 p.m. An officer in the surrounding area was able to apprehend the 21-year-old shooter, and many citizens are concerned of the fact of the incident occurred in broad daylight. The boy was rushed to the hospital and is in critical condition but stable. Details are unknown and the investigation is still ongoing. Thank you for watching RMU Live. Please tune in next week.